Welcome back yet again to our Gospels in a Year. We have kicked off the book of John. We're on the home stretch, and hopefully by the end of the year we will have finished John off. Although I did notice that John is 21 chapters, so we're going to see how we go. We might have to get a bit of a higher view at some point, but it's just so much in John. I'm enjoying it already, looking into it so much because there is so much there. Last week we talked about the introduction of John being, in the beginning was the Word, and the throwback to the creation narrative or the creation prose, and so that's fascinating. But as it moves on, it moves on, and John the Baptist, before we get to chapter 2, I suppose, at the end of chapter 1, it says that John the Baptist sees Jesus and says to him, "Behold the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world." Now, first of all, that's an incredible statement that Jesus has taken away the sin of the world. Now, that's something that you need to wrestle with, because I don't think enough of us do wrestle with that statement, because it is a phenomenal, massive idea. But what it also is talking about is it's saying that Jesus is the scapegoat. If we take our mind back to Exodus and the whole idea of Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, and what would happen is that every year there's a whole incredible festival, which I won't go into, but one of the parts of it is that the high priest would put all the sins of the year for Israel onto the scapegoat, or Azazel, and send that goat away. And the whole sin of the people of Israel for that year would be sent away. But so when John the Baptist tells the world that he is the Lamb of God that takes away the sins of the world, it does a couple of things. Number one, it says to people, he is the scapegoat, he is the Azazel. It also says, number two, we don't need to kill goats anymore, because this is not a once a year deal, this is a lifetime deal. It's not just taking away the sins of the world for this year, it's taking away the sins of the world, full stop. As John's having his sort of revelation, it goes over a couple of days, we find that there are two disciples of John the Baptist. And so, I actually hadn't noticed this before. I'm sure I've read it a bunch of times, but it actually says that there were two disciples of John the Baptist. When John the Baptist goes, "Hey everybody, here's Jesus, he's the Messiah, he's the one we've been waiting for." And these two disciples go, "Thanks John, awesome, we're going to now start following him instead of you." Now, and I don't actually think John would have been disappointed with that, but it's just an interesting little tidbit that they were following John, but when John made the realization, made the claim that Jesus was the Messiah, they went and followed him. And one of those people was Andrew. And so it tells the story about Andrew then goes to Peter, his brother, Simon at that point, and says, "Hey, we have found the Messiah. You need to come and meet him and follow him as well." And then you've got this interesting story about Philip and who introduces Jesus to Nathanael, and Nathanael goes to Nathanael, "Hey, we found the Messiah, he's from Nazareth." He goes, "Can anything good come from Nazareth?" And Jesus says, "Hey Nathanael, great to have you, you're going to follow me." And he goes, "How do you know who I am?" He said, "I saw you under the fig tree." And he goes, "Wow, you really must be the Messiah, I'll absolutely follow you," which is an odd thing. So what I might do is I'm going to read that story quickly, because it will make more sense if we do. Jesus saw Nathanael coming toward him and exclaimed, "Look, a true Israelite in whom there is no deceit." Nathanael asked him, "How do you know me?" Jesus replied, "Before Philip called you when you were under the fig tree, I saw you." Nathanael answered him, "Rabbi, you are the Son of God, you are the King of Israel." Jesus said to him, "Because I told you that I saw you under a fig tree, do you believe? You will see greater things than these." He continued, "I tell all of you the solemn truth. You will see heaven opened and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man." It's a kind of a bizarre statement. Like, what does the story, so that there's a story back in Genesis about Jacob has a dream, and he sees this ladder. It's called Jacob's ladder, and the angels are ascending and descending from heaven to earth, and all that. And it kind of doesn't really make any sense. So it's almost like we've interrupted a conversation. So here's one way, which I think it was Marty Solomon brought it up, and I thought it makes kind of sense, because he says, "Hey Nathanael, an Israelite without deceit." Now, what we don't understand, what we miss, is that when Jesus said, "I saw you under the fig tree," to see someone under the fig tree is a euphemism of they're in the process of being taught by their rabbi, or being taught by a religious teacher. So it's like, how did you know who I was? Well, I don't know, maybe he put his hand up and the rabbi goes, hey, Nathaniel, what's your question? And so Jesus knew what his name was from that perspective is kind of what Jesus is alluding to. But then he goes into this space of Jacob, and Jacob was known as a person of deceit, but Jacob became Israel and became the very foundation of the nation of Israel. And so you've got this idea where Jesus says, hey, Nathaniel, here's a man without deceit. And then he brings up Jacob, who becomes Israel. It's almost like we've missed a bit of the conversation where maybe Nathaniel's been wrestling with an issue. Maybe it is that he's feeling like he's deceitful. Maybe he feels like he has imposter syndrome or something like that. And Jesus is actually going, hey, I saw your question. You're a guy with no deceit, don't worry about it. And even remember the story of Jacob? He started off as a man of deceit, but you're going to see the same things that Jacob saw. And I thought that was a really cool way to understand it. Whether it's right or not, I don't know, but it makes a lot more sense than when you just read it straight off the page. And now we go to chapter 2, and I don't know how we're going to get this done in 10 weeks at this pace, but we're going to make it, I promise. So chapter 2 is all about the wedding at Cana and the clearing of the temples. Cana, that's really interesting, is the place where the zealots live. The zealots were the ones who were these passionate, they wanted to fight the Romans with swords, and they wanted to take on that, and they're assuming that the Messiah is going to draw a sword and they're going to go and free them from the Roman Empire. The other thing that's interesting in this story is that the wedding was on the third day, and that's a throwback to the creation narrative. You see, it's one of the things that you may not know in the creation narrative is, you know how it says, it is good, it is good, it is good. Well, on day 2, God doesn't call day 2 good, but he calls day 3 good twice. So the Jewish idea, or the Hebrew idea, was that the third day was doubly blessed. And so that was the day that culturally people would get married on. And I think that's just a nice little part of the story as well. And then what does he do? He says that they're at the party, they run out of wine, and his mum goes, hey, Jesus, do something about the wine. And he says, the time isn't right, the time hasn't come yet. And Mary goes, hey, everybody, just do what he says and we'll be fine. And he turns the water into wine. But the fascinating part of that is, again, this is a remez back to Genesis. So if we remember, there are 2 stories about 7 years. The first one is Jacob wanting to marry Rachel, and he waited 7 years, and he goes up to the father and says, hey, the time has now come. And he goes, oh, here you go. And he gives it to Leah. And he goes, I didn't want to marry Leah. I wanted Rachel. Well, you need to work another 7 years. But so you've got this one story there. And then the second story you've got is Joseph and the Egyptians. And so there's this famine through all the land except for Egypt. 7 years of plenty, 7 years of famine. And the Pharaoh says to Joseph, go and do whatever, says to the people, go and do whatever Joseph tells you. So you've got this kind of banter between mother and son with Jesus and Mary. So Mary says to Jesus, hey, go and do something about the wine. And he says, my time has not yet come, which is the same phrasing but in the negative that Jacob says for Rachel, hey, the time has now come. I'm ready, let's get married, let's do this. And so Jesus is throwing back to that going, no, I'm not ready to marry myself to this cause yet. I'm not ready. The time is not right. And then Mary goes, no, whatever that Jesus tells you to do that. And it's like this dueling of Bible, Jesus is using Jacob to go, no, I'm not ready to do this yet. And Mary's going, really? Well, just like in the time of feast, and Pharaoh told Joseph to do whatever he said, and then we're going to be okay. If you do whatever, and so you've got this idea. You just need to go back to Luke chapter 1, I think it is, with Mary's Magnificat to see how incredibly wise, how incredibly godly, and how incredibly well Mary knew her scriptures. And it's kind of fun. I think it's kind of fun to see that in this sort of theological battle, even though it's Jesus, his mum still has the upper hand. And then we have the cleansing of the temple. The cleansing of the temple, I'm not going to go into that, you can go and read that if you like, but the reason why it's so important, I think, is because what made Jesus mad was that the money changers and the people selling the stuff were not just ripping people off, they were shortcutting the process. So people didn't need to prepare their sacrifice. People didn't need to prepare their worship. They could just come to the temple and it was pre-prepared, put some money in the plate, and that was done. Now, in a sense, that can sound a lot like some of our churches today, isn't it? We don't come to church prepared. We don't come to church ready to sacrifice. We don't come to church ready to worship, but we put a few dollars in the plate and we shortcut the whole process. And Jesus is going, that's not the idea. I don't want shortcuts. I'm looking for a people that will worship, and I'm looking for a people that will sacrifice, and that it's really goes on in chapter 4 to talk about that will worship in spirit and in truth. And so we've got these two stories. We've got the wedding at Cana and the cleansing of the temple. So that is chapter 2. And I mean, I actually think that's a good question. Why don't we finish with that question this time? We'll go on next week onto chapter 3. But you know, when you come to church on a Sunday, well, number one, Sundays are for church, all right? So are we committed? Are we going, or are we taking shortcuts from that perspective? Are we committed to spending time? Are we committed to worship? Are we committing to sacrifice? Are we committing to Jesus? But then the second part of it is maybe you are coming every week, but are you coming prepared, ready to worship? Is your heart postured in the right space and place? Have you come ready, or are we just taking shortcuts and just kind of, you know, I sort of tease our sort of style of church a bit, because in a sense it's a bit like a platter that we take around and you just take the bits that you want, but that's not what church is meant to be. That's kind of that's the kind of church that Jesus was turning upside down. Jesus wants a church where we come prepared, where we come ready to worship, we come excited and expectant, and we've paid the price, we've done what we need to do, and we're coming to experience God. Is that how we do it? Well, they're big questions, and I'll leave you those to wrestle with. Again, great to have you with us. Make sure you comment, make sure you just join us, make sure that you let us know where you're up to, and we will see you next week for chapter 3.